Hello, we are UATV. My name is Kinetic. This is News Pulse for you. Welcome to the show. In the episode today, Trump is pushing Ukraine, and he says he's pushing it towards peace. Burn, baby, burn. The oil rig in Caspian Sea for the first time ever burns, as well as a tanker that belongs just to no one. Ukraine ramps up Kinetic sanctions. Everyone literally keeps on saying they want peace in Ukraine, but to actually understand who wants a just peace and who just a peace, you'd have to look at blood. Ukraine is literally bleeding out, losing its people every day, while almost everybody around else, including Donald Trump, seems to blackmail the embattled country. What only differs is just the level of blunt shamelessness with which it is happening. But Donald Trump indeed is pushing, and he says he is pushing for peace. But as Wall Street Journal author David Ignatius writes in his opinion column, Trump could still push just too hard and just blow it by squeezing President Zelenskyy and his European partners so hard they choose to fight on despite the awful cost. That would be bad for everyone. This actually is a moment for Donald Trump and his administration to reassure Ukraine and Europe not to try to bludgeon them into settlements. Trump's tilt towards the Kremlin, freshly baked U.S. national security strategy, released by the White House last week, has severely complicated negotiations. Because of Trump's added absurdity into it, it all obviously leans to Putin. Trump openly says it in his peace plan. It is Ukraine, the invaded, that must leave Donbass, not Russia, the invader. Also, Donald Trump believes that Ukraine should hold elections ASAP, having said Kyiv has been using war as a pretext not to hold the elections.
Today I spoke with representatives of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. Substantively, I will not allow any speculation against Ukraine, and if partners, including our key partner in Washington, are talking so much and so specifically about the elections in Ukraine, about elections under martial law, then we must give Ukrainian legal answers to every question and every doubt. It won't be easy, but we definitely do not need such a pressure on us. I expect that the Parliament members will offer their perspective on the matter. Security challenges depend on our partners, on America first of all, while political and legal challenges must be answered by Ukraine, and it will be so. Glory to Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine.
And Ukrainian Parliament, Verkhovna Rada, is ready to adopt all necessary laws for elections during wartime, says First Deputy Chairman of the Verkhovna Rada, Alexander Kornienko. Without security guarantees from the US and the EU, holding safe elections is simply impossible. Does Donald Trump understand that in terms of elections in particular and in terms of peace deal in general? Well, according to Wall Street Journal, despite this shaky foundation, the Trump peace effort has some promise, at least. U.S. negotiators like Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, they are business tycoons, not diplomats, but they seem to recognize that the best protection for Ukraine is a combination of binding security guarantees and future economic prosperity. And they know the package will fail unless Zelenskyy can sell it to a brave but exhausted country. Also, Donald Trump said, for some strange reason, that over 80% of Ukrainians are ready to see their land in order to stop this war. And so the Ukrainian nation has been asked two hardest questions ever, maybe in the history of country. First, in order to achieve peace as soon as possible and preserve independence, Ukraine can give up some of its territories. Second question, under no circumstances should Ukraine give up any of its territories, even if this causes the war to last longer and there will be threats to the preservation of independence. And here is what Ukraine has answered as of December 2025. If it comes to the official recognition of certain territories as part of Russia, the vast majority, 67%, will be against it. Ready to accept it, 24%. Compared to May-June 2025, the situation has practically not changed. Also, the vast majority, which is 71%, firmly rejects the transfer of any territories controlled by Ukraine to Russia. Ready to accept only 19%. In May-June 2025, 78% categorically rejected, and 15% were ready for such an option. In the case of option of freezing the front line without officially recognizing any of occupied territories as part of Russia, 56% categorically reject the option and 35% are ready to accept it. At the same time, the willingness to accept this option has decreased since May-June. The share of those who can agree has decreased from 43% to 35%. The share of those who are categorically against it has increased from 48% to 56%. Well, the problem is those literally absurd Trump's team propositions, like Ukraine must leave territory of Ukraine, so to get Russia comfortable in Ukraine, and also these leaked US plans, blueprint to rewire economy of Russia, that Wall Street Journal has recently publicized, and that also infamous Soviet propagandist Tucker Carlson, yes, Soviet, because in his opinion, Russia has everything that America needs: the largest reserves of natural resources, energy, minerals, oil, gas, gold, a powerful army, and a large population which provides military and industrial capacity. Yeah, that is the largest country in the world, he says, by area, and has great industrial potential. But human values, dignity, freedom, sovereignty, international law and order, all that, Tucker Carlson and Trump's team are obviously just dismissing as non-relevant in that kind of peace they propagate. Obviously, none of that invigorates anyone, neither in Europe nor in Ukraine. Still, work is in progress. Ukraine has delivered its response to the latest US drafted peace proposal aimed at ending the war with Russia to the Trump administration on Wednesday. US and Ukrainian officials told that to CNN as the contours of 10 years potential deal take shape, and Trump continues to make clear he wants the conflict to be resolved as quickly as possible. Trump on Wednesday suggested a solution could be figured out, telling reporters at the White House that a lot of people say it's closer than it's ever been. He also said he discussed Ukraine in pretty strong words with his British, French and German counterparts, whom he said had floated the idea of Trump flying to Europe for a meeting, along with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy this weekend. We'll make a determination depending on what they come back with, Trump said. We don't want to be wasting time, says President of the United States, Donald Trump, a man who promised to stop this war in one day and failed. For the first time, Ukraine has stopped the operation of a Russian oil platform, and that happened in the Caspian Sea. The oil rig in Caspian Sea belongs to the Lukoil company and was attacked by the Alpha Special Operations Center of the Ukrainian Special Forces, SBU. At least 4 hits were recorded on the offshore platform. As a result of the attack, oil and gas production from more than 20 wells it serves has completely stopped. The Filanovsky bed oil field is one of the largest explored in the Russian Federation and in the Russian sector of the Caspian Sea. Its reserves amount to 129 million tons of oil and 30 billion cubic meters of gas. The extracted products were sent for export through the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, the source informed. The SBU continues successful special operation against the Russian oil and gas sector, constantly expanding the geography. Recent operation in the Caspian Sea is yet another reminder to the Russian Federation that all its enterprises working for war are legitimate targets, wherever they are actually located, says a source in SBU. Russia always has been saying that a so-called shadow fleet just does not exist. And if it does, it is not Russian. Right, well then, I guess there is no reason to worry in the Kremlin. That Dashan tanker damaged today was traveling with its transponder turned off and was not flying any flag. Russia said all is good and the vessel was not Russian but being Gambian. Other publications report its registry in the Comoros Islands. In fact, it turns out that the 164,000-ton deadweight vessel belongs just to no one. Or belonged, better said. In March 2025, this tanker was carrying 140,000 tons of oil from Novorossiysk to Port Said when its engine failed right in the Dardanelles Strait. There were no consequences in terms of oil spill, but what does it all mean? More is coming, that's what. More no one knows. Tankers will be going up in flames as most effective sanctions so far. I mean, what else has been left for Ukraine that is being pushed by its main ally to cede it all, land, dignity, and own freedom to the violent aggressor, but to keep on burning tankers that belong to no one, but still are helping Russia somehow? This is a position where the world puts itself by attempting to appease monsters. Those left without a choice facing monsters' aggression are becoming more and more dangerous simply because they're becoming more and more desperate. Moscow may intensify hybrid attacks against NATO member states, Reuters reports, citing a Danish intelligence forecast, while in turn Ukrainian intelligence forecasts that not may, it will. Look deeper into our story about new security architecture of Europe.
Moscow may intensify hybrid attacks against NATO member states, Reuters reports, citing a Danish intelligence forecast. The countries posing the greatest threat to the alliance's security, according to the Danish Security and Intelligence Service, are Russia and China.
The world's great powers are increasingly prioritizing their own interests and using force to achieve their goals. At the same time, uncertainty has arisen about the role of the United States as a guarantor of European security, and this will increase Russia's willingness to intensify its hybrid attacks against NATO, from a publication by Reuters.
To counter hybrid threats from Russia, Latvia plans to allocate more than 200 million euros in 2026 to strengthen air defense, and another 50 million to develop UAV capabilities. This was announced by Latvian Defense Minister Andris Spruds. He noted that acoustic drone detection technologies and integration of new surveillance systems will allow the defense forces to respond more effectively to potential threats. They are also important steps in creating a European drone wall.
Our external border is also the border of the European Union and NATO, and its security is our common responsibility. Therefore, at the European level, I advocate for increasing funding for air defense and drone capabilities, emphasizing that this is one of the most important tasks for Europe in the coming years. Andris Spruds, Minister of Defense of Latvia, from a statement on the Latvian Ministry of Defense website.
Meanwhile, Germany is developing plans to defend its airspace, a representative of the German Air Traffic Control Service reported. According to him, airlines and airports still do not take the possibility of an attack on the country or NATO allies seriously enough.
We are working currently with the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Transport on a requirement catalog to be prepared for a defense case. Airlines or civil airlines or airports are far away from thinking that we may enter into such a scenario where we have military activities in the country. And this is something we need to work on, that they exactly know what's going on in case the airspace will be closed and so on. Arndt Schoenemann, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of DFS Deutsche Flugsicherung, in a comment to Euronews.
Ensuring the security of airspace on NATO's eastern flank is the alliance's responsibility, stated German Deputy Defense Minister Niels Schmidt during a visit to Romania. In early 2025, 5 Eurofighter jets from the German Air Force were deployed to the country as part of NATO's airspace policing mission.
And it is absolutely clear to us as the German government that protecting the eastern flank is the responsibility of NATO as a whole, and therefore also Germany's responsibility. That is why we are here. That is why our Air Force is here, the major modernization of the Romanian armed forces. We are fully aware that European allies must assume greater responsibility within NATO for a more effective approach to threats to our alliance. We are also exploring new ways of collaborating with our German partner in the field of modernizing defense capabilities, strengthening the deterrence and defense posture in the Black Sea, and the support provided to Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova.
The Finnish armed forces have acquired new equipment designed to counter small reconnaissance drones, Reuters reports. According to the agency, this involves hundreds of jammers and portable drone detectors, as well as additional sights. The military plans to order a significant number of various types of UAVs in 2026, as well as additional equipment to counter unmanned aerial vehicles. Reported by Kristina Dombrovska, UATV News.
Well, that's it for today. I'm Henry Keane. Thank you so very much for standing firmly with Ukraine. And let me show you again, that is well felt and warmly appreciated here in Ukraine. If you're new to a channel somehow, please do not shy out of subscribing so to stay tuned to what is happening in the world in Ukrainian perspective presented to you by us, UATV. Thank you and goodbye. Hope to see you tomorrow.